Welcome, Darklings, to Season 3 of the Reign of Blood podcast. I'm Ember, one of your hosts, here to introduce you to the shadowy depths of what hopes to be our most sinister season yet. This season, your unholy trinity of organizers and hosts, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and myself, have entirely way too much fun with the Summer of Stabs, our 80s horror-themed series that promises to be both educational and thrilling. Our aim is to explore the macabre beauty that lies in the shadowed, or maybe not so shadowed, spaces of desire. Leading up to Reign of Blood Nightfall, our advanced Halloween extravaganza, we'll be discussing topics such as embodied and informed consent, risk mitigation, and other helpful tips, ensuring that every prick, slice, and puncture is as thought through as it is sensational for you. We'll also continue interviewing sharps enthusiasts from around the world to find out what makes the blood-loving heart tick. And maybe we'll talk Miss K into recording some more horror meditations for us. Join us as we explore the eerie, the edgy, and the exquisitely sharp. This is Reign of Blood, where the macabre meets the magnificent, and the only limit is your imagination, risk profile, and informed consent. Let the Summer of Stabs begin. But first, a content warning. This podcast is not suited for individuals who are not legal adults, are not interested in heavier BDSM practices, who are presently having severe mental or relationship health concerns, or who do not already understand basic BDSM practices regarding consent, ethics, risk mitigation, etc. Topics may include things like mental health issues, social issues, injustice, blood and sharks, of course, medical trauma, medical issues, trauma of various types, and more. Listener discretion is heavily advised.
Hey, amazing Sharps players, and welcome back to the Reign of Blood podcast. I'm your host, Miss Kitten, and I'm really excited to welcome Mia to my dungeon virtually, all the way from New Jersey, Philadelphia. And it's really lovely to have her on my show and to get to chat to her. And my team is so excited because she's coming on board as an educator for us. So we're really excited to welcome her to the platform and welcome her to the podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today, Mia, and welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to chat with you today. I'm excited to see what we get into.
Yay! Mia, I know a little bit about you, but my listeners know absolutely nothing. So maybe you can give us a little bit of how you went from being a vanilla muggle in the muggle world to finding kink, and what that journey has brought forward for you.
Oh boy. Okay. So for those who don't know me, which is probably most of you, my name is Mia Action. I am a professional dominatrix and kink educator and independent scholar based, in the Philadelphia, South New Jersey area. In terms of how I got into this world, let's see. I mean, I certainly have been kinky the majority of my life, I'd say, though with varying levels of awareness and language to describe those interests. I would say that my start into the BDSM world would have started with sex work in particular, and fetish work, and shortly afterwards, kind of finding the lifestyle BDSM community as well. I also have an art background and a background in special education. So when I chose the route of being a professional dominatrix, I was like, oh, I won't, end up pursuing my training in education. But, here I am kind of utilizing those skills in a way that works for me. And in terms of blood play and sharps, it was kind of a gradual evolution into it being my main fetish and my main area of focus. But I do remember joining FetLife and like lurking around and seeing like particularly some of the more extreme sharps play, like some of the work of Sadistica, for example, and being like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. Like that was like totally mind blowing. And it's interesting how at one point in time you'd be like, oh, I would never do that thing, and then here you are working towards those very things.
That sounds so amazing. I really I love that you saw stuff that you thought was a limit and it's now become part of your play and part of your life. I love hearing about how we all evolve. I feel and relate to that quite deeply. A lot of the stuff I saw when I joined FedLife would have terrified younger me, and older me
Yes.
is now embracing it with both hands. I
Yes.
think if you'd asked me about 3 years ago, somebody said to me, when we take the needles out, can we play in the blood? And I was horrified, literally
Yes.
horrified. I was like, hell no, that's not happening in my space. You're going to make a mess. That's not what the play is about. That's not what we're
Mm.
doing. It's not going to happen. And the two bottoms just smiled at each other and said, okay. And now I don't really care what the needles look like, as long as there is
As long
blood
as the
to
blood.
yeah, as long as
Yes.
there's blood to flow. I'm super excited about it, and I'm all in. You mentioned a little bit about your path in life being related to or finding art, and I think
Mhm.
that relates quite a bit to what we do in shops. I also have a bit of an art background. Do you want to expand that a little bit for me, if you're happy to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, as I mentioned, the background in special education, but also particularly in fine art. And as we were talking, it came to me one of my first memories that kind of planted a seed into doing blood play in the future was being exposed to the work of an artist named Catherine Opie, who is um, a photographer based here in the U.S. But um, she has this work. Um, she has this work that details like queer and lesbian BDSM subcultures. And so I was about 15 years old, and I was taking a figure drawing class in my local town, and there was a poster up at this college for a artist talk by Catherine Opie, and it was one of her photographs, one of her self-portrait photographs, and she had carved an image of two female stick figures holding hands with a house and a sun and clouds into her back, and the blood is kind of dripping down her back. And I remember that was like one of my first exposures to that kind of sadomasochism, and I remember um, that stuck with me. And I definitely credit my evolution in this world to that moment, and of course many other moments, but that one in particular.
I love that. We have a South African artist who did a piece called The Butcher Boys, and they're these enormous, bigger than life sculptures made out of wax and steel and leather. And these incredibly sculptured human beings with these beast heads on them, and they're sitting like normal human beings would in train stations and in the corner, and um, they look completely lifelike and completely real, and but they're completely surreal at the same time. And I think my love of latex and leather and all of that kind of mingled and started at a very young age for me too.
Yeah.
Just really admiring that work and the idea of having these butcher boys carrying me around on a pedestal, I think is my youngest fantasy, like that I remember
Yeah.
about being kinky. So I love that. And it's lovely to see how somebody's legacy can be passed down, and we see it from a different perspective, and it leaves a little bit of a trace in our legacy too. That's really cool. I'd love to get
Yeah.
the artist details from you and be able to link them in the bio at the end of the podcast. That would be great.
Yeah, I can definitely give you that.
So what you also have quite a bit of a teaching background there. You are a special education educator as well, which I think is a huge passion and a huge calling, and I think lends itself very well to looking at education from a different perspective in kink.
Yeah.
And then you practice as a pro dom.
Yes, I do. Yep.
And so tell me a little bit about what other fetishes and kinks you sort of really appeal to you and you really enjoy spending time doing.
So aside from, I mean, blood and sharps play are probably number one. Um, Power exchange in general, so master slave dynamics. I mean, I think are very much intertwined with those things, but I think power exchange is the cornerstone of what appeals to me within sadomasochism. So I certainly like to play with those ideas as a pro dom. I'm also pretty well known for tickle torture. So lots of very different, different subcultures. I have my hands in, because like
You
the
have
tickling.
to you have to tell me more about the tickling. I have to know
Yeah,
more.
yeah. I mean, I didn't even. It's so in like because to me, like the tickling subculture is so different from say like sharps and blood play. Like it's such a different vibe. It's such a different group of people. Um, and I just think it's hilarious that I'm in like I don't know. There's I have a lot of polarities, a lot of like there's a lot of duality in my work. Um, but I didn't even know that tickling was like a fetish subculture until I started pro doming and I started having people approach me. But then, as I would take these sessions and realize like how much I enjoy tickle torture, that I had a like recovered memory of my first memory of having sadomasochistic desires was tickling friends when I was like 11 years old, like tickling them very severely or like tickling boyfriends. And I remember having like funny feelings when I was tickling people, like that it wasn't like a normal, just playful thing. It was more than that. And I remember being like, oh my God, I'm so deranged. Like I'm gonna take this to the grave with me. No one can know that I like but and then like I forgot about it and it didn't come back to me, as I said, until like years and years and years later when I started pro doming and now I'm like fairly sought after with tickle fetishists.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I have so I didn't it's funny how you get to an age where you look back on your youth and you're like, I should have known I was a sadist.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've been a sadist all my life. It's not something that's new. I just didn't have a name or a title for it then. I had a
Right.
party at a friend's house when I was about 13. It was one of these girls' sleepover parties and um always super excited and lots of candy and sweets and sugar and giggles. But she had a slightly younger brother, I think he was about a year younger than she was. And her mom had one of these electronic zapper belts that helped you lose weight. I was young.
Ah.
I can't even remember exactly what it was called, but it was an absolute, like, I just remember having the best night of my life because we restrained this poor brother as older sisters always do, and we attached this zapper belt to various parts of his face and his feet and all kinds of stuff. And it was like the best night of my life. It was really like, and looking back on that now, I sort of think to myself, it was pretty obvious that I was going to be a sadist.
Yes. I love it.
Hey. Um, I love the tickle torture thing, and I also think it's so nice to have a different range of experiences in life, and it just brings a big diversity of human beings through your into your path, and I think that's just
Yeah.
amazing. So tell me a little bit more about the needles and the blood for you personally. What is your favorite thing to do with sharp objects? And what is your favorite scene been so far?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see. My favorite thing to do with sharp objects. I don't know that I can pick one favorite, but I can definitely like speak to a few that come to mind. I guess the first one being genitorture. So needles in the bits. And also in the breast too. Breast torture is like one of my main go-tos. And what was I gonna say? I just blanked out there. Needles in the bits, needles in the bits, and I also really enjoy self-stabbing, and we had talked about that a little bit. That definitely my interest in sadomasochism is very much tied up in my exhibitionism. So having that audience and like being watched while engaging in S&M is like a part of what activates my interest in it. And in particular, like I very much am a sadist. I'm a top, I'm a dominant, but I also like have this interest in, you know, like performing self stabs on myself and the subsequent bleeding, particularly in the face and the forehead. um I find it to be very empowering and a very cathartic and honestly pretty arousing experience to do that. And I've had the opportunity to perform at a few different venues, fetish venues, and even at one point a fine arts venue, doing these blood performances. Um, but yeah, so I would say those two things would be the top two, needles and the bits. Oh, that was the third thing. The third thing would be I love the way that needles can temporarily, in a way, almost like mutilate the body, particularly through um, inserting needles and then like twisting the skin and stretching the skin to like kind of make these obscured shapes. Particularly in I find myself as I get more and more into sharps and blood play, like being attracted to the quality of people's flesh. So I'm like very attracted to people that have like loose skin or stretchy skin because there's the possibility of, you know, inserting the needles and then kind of stretching and twisting them in circles and making all of these elaborate kind of shapes and patterns with their skin. And then you take them out and it's back to normal. You know, the skin bounces right back. And I love that resiliency. I love the extreme um visual, the striking visual effect of a whole bunch of needles stuck in a body.
You said a whole bunch of stuff there that I really relate to. First of all, the needles and the bits. Like there is no better skin. And I take it as a personal challenge to try and expand the real estate to get as many needles in as possible. Like I really think
Yes.
it's like a super planning skill. Like you're skilled if you can put them in a bag, or but if you can do 100 needles down there, you are rocking like real estate planning. I think
Yeah.
I think often in my delusion, I think I'm the world. Like I'm really good. Like I'm in the top 40 of real estate planners. Like
That's awesome.
they should let me build houses on a big scale because you know I can use every centimeter or inch
That's
or
amazing.
millimeter of space. So yeah, I absolutely love that. I think there's also um I see that as probably the only time I have a power dynamic in my
Mhm.
shops play. So I
Mhm.
kind of like it. It's a different energy for me. But yeah, I definitely relate to that.
I
And then
guess.
what you just said now about how needles can change. For me, I relate to that on a maybe a slightly different level. I don't know if you meant it the same way, but I found that the skin became like this amazing canvas. You
Mm-hmm.
spoke about the quality of the canvas. Like it's so
Yeah.
interesting because even different parts of the body have a different skin quality and they
Yes.
feel different to pierce, and the resistance is different and the outcome is different in the way the needles lie. But for me, it was like the art then had pain behind it. So it was almost like it
Yes.
went from 2D art to being 3D art because it was like
Yes.
living. And I don't know how
Yes.
else to express it. And then on top of that, you could then sculpt this canvas into like it was like layering oils on.
Yeah.
There was almost like another depth to it. So there was almost like a 4D, like an
Yes.
extra layer on top of it. And then because it's living, they all come out. And the art still has this journey. And part of the healing is, you're watching the marks change and the bruising happen or not happen, or the marks get darker or lighter, and they kind of journey with the human being on this incredible canvas until the canvas is almost blank again and you can almost start again.
And you can stand up.
Um, and I just really love it. So listening to you talk about it really like it ticks all those boxes for me. And it makes me really think about how incredible the canvas is, and it's also the depth that you put it in, and you can
Yes.
really actually sculpt that skin. Like it's really
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. And also that as you were talking, that made me think about like if you're having sex with someone, for example, right? You're learning their body, you're learning the ways that their body reacts to different sensations, to like being touched in different ways, different depths of penetration, right? In a way, like needles is like this, it's kind of like um it's getting a send voicemail. There we go. Can you still hear me? Oh, can you hear me? I think I might have lost you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I was
No
getting a
problem.
call. I was saying, so as I said, you're learning all of the different buttons to push, the different ways that your partner will react to different kinds of sexual touch. And with needles, it's like each needle is its own like active penetration, and there's so many different dimensions to the quality of the sensation, like you said, that with depth and with the site of the piercing, with the quality of the skin, with the emotional or physical state of the bottom, the different type of emotional connection or power dynamic. All of these things can impact like what any given needle feels like going in. And like not only does it teach you like in one given like scene, like needle scene, the person will react differently to different needles, but over time the way that like nerves are mapped through the body, like different needles are going to feel different on different people. Like there's just so many, like I'm like there's like 7 dimensions. It's like not even just 5, it's like endless dimensions when playing sexually with the skin like that.
I love that, and that ability to calibrate it becomes really special. And then I find if you add other mediums to it, so if you add wax or if you add a
Like,
vibrator or like up sensations that normally your body would almost be switched off to or closed down to, or just not registering, you can
yeah,
make them so frigging intense. Like 2 drops of
yeah,
wax on the body when the body is full of
yeah,
needles. The body
yeah,
is shouting and screaming. It's so
yeah,
beautiful how the needles recalibrate the whole thing and give you a
yes.
different answer to the questions that you're asking.
Hmm.
And they just really make the body so aware. So I absolutely love that. I think the idea that you can then add sensation to the art piece, and that the body is so receptive to the questions that you're asking it at the time is really cool. For me, it's a lot about, I think we're not always present in our daily lives. I think we're always doing 50 other things, and our brains are always
Yes.
working on 100 different levels. But I just found that the quality of time that I spend with someone when I'm piercing them, or when I'm being pierced, or when I'm piercing myself even. Just the quality of time that I'm spending with myself is like 100%. And it's really special because that's not something that is afforded in every situation in my daily life. So I really find it a privilege to be able to spend that time with somebody, or even, like I said, spend it with myself, with the self-piercing.
Yes, I couldn't agree
So,
more.
yeah, so I have to ask a question. It's I think it always comes up as soon as we talk about self-stab. How does it differ for you from self-harm?
It is very, yeah, that's an excellent question. It's a very, very good question. And I know that there are a lot of people within Sharps and, blood play community, and even within BDSM community at large, that very much want to distance themselves from that idea that this kind of play, or like these kinds of activities can be self-harm, right? Like it's a matter of, because it's stigmatized, and because there is this stigmatized association with self-harm, that people are like, we want to completely differentiate those things. I don't think that there is like a clear answer of like what makes something self-harm versus what makes something like an erotic activity, because to be honest with you, like for some people those things, there is a fine line, and those things can go hand in hand. And in fact, like, I mean, um what I have observed in like knowing lots of people that do this, and their histories with either self-harm or knowing other people, or like my journeys and things, is that I think it is like it's really just a shifting of intentions, and it's a shifting of like how you're relating to your body as you enact these things on it. Because certainly the exact same like behavior in a different context could be considered self-harm, right? But I definitely don't shy away from like looking at those associations. And in fact, like, I think that eroticism can be found in that intense urge to engage in those kinds of actions. And yeah, does that make sense?
Makes a huge amount of sense, and
Yeah.
I think that you can. I think that kink sometimes for me, I've been in situations where people have asked me to do something to them, as a mistress or as a top, that was literally asking me to harm them,
Right.
instead of them harming themselves. So for
Yeah.
me, that has
Hmm.
the same
Yes.
intent as self-harm. They are
Yes.
looking to harm. They are actually looking for the harm. Um, I think that as long as you are looking for the pain without the harm, if that
Hmm.
makes any sense, the intent for me is a bit clearer. I think it's definitely in my own case about intent. It's about having a clear mind, having a clear intention of the process of where I'm going.
Yeah.
Um, I get a little bit, sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed because I think the community can have, because it's so easily interpreted in the wrong way. I think there's
Yeah.
a huge amount of pressure to only show work that's perfect, that
Yes.
only show
Yes.
work that ticks certain boxes and reaches a certain standard. And I think that is I think that's a little bit unfair sometimes, and I feel that pressure as a top,
Yes.
and as a player, and I think that sometimes the chaos that comes from being able to express yourself, when I draw, I like to pick up a piece of paper, and sometimes I just like to scribble, and
Yeah.
sometimes
Yes.
it's a total mess, and the picture only comes out at the end. And as I've got better in my sharps journey, with my techniques, it's been easier for me to be braver in how I
Mhm.
approach the work.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And
Yes.
yeah, I'm braver in how I am able to express myself like that, and not be worried about the response, because I have a lot more confidence and trust in myself, I think. But
Yes.
I think there's still this overwhelming pressure in the shops community to produce perfect pieces so that the rest of the BDSM community can judge us on their own standards. And I
Yes.
sometimes find that hugely unfair. I think that sometimes there's very little difference to a whole bunch of impact marks that form beautiful bruises to a whole bunch of needle marks that form beautiful bruises.
Yes.
And I think we just need to be confident in our intent and authentic in our intent, and honest about it.
Yes.
And I think that, the BDSM space is there for us to be able to admit that that authenticity, and it's hard. It's fucking hard. It's really hard, especially when there's so many great artists out there and there's so much stuff um to aspire to be. But
Yes.
just being where you are in your journey and just enjoying the moment. For me, it's been an interesting year because I have just gone back to intent. Like intent's been the whole focus of my journey. We've got Lee Harrington speaking to us at Arena Blood Nightfall, and the interview that they did with me changed my head a lot. And then I think everybody that's followed on has had the same like impact. Just the, like what is the intent of the scene that I'm setting, whether
Yeah.
it's self-play or it's with my partner. Because I think I got to a point in my needlework journey where I was like, the intent is to create this perfect art piece. And I know
Yeah.
as an artist that if that is my intent in the piece is a lot less perfect than I would
Yes.
like it to be, because there is, um, don't strive for perfection. Perfection practice makes personal, not perfect. And I
Yes.
think you've got to keep it personal and keep the intent. So, it's interesting to hear how intent's just kind of been the focus and keeps coming up. But I
Yeah.
definitely look for intent in my plays a lot more now.
Yeah.
And
Like in mhm.
yeah, sorry,
Intent
I didn't mean to
and I
interrupt you.
oh, that's okay. Um, Intent, and I think it's like well, one thing as you're talking, I was like thinking through your question a little bit more. Um, but I know like in terms of like discerning like, oh, okay, if I'm going to do this with this person, like how do I kind of discern their intent? And um I think that an ability to be present with the emotions and the sensations that come up is an important differentiation for me between like this is harmful and like this is generative. And again, like I try not to like be too prescriptive because I think that what is harm like versus generative or like not harm, it can be like highly subjective to the individual. um but an ability to like not use sharps inherently to numb out and to avoid, I think, to avoid what the emotional experience is an important distinction. And there was something else that you had said that I wanted to speak to, which was this pressure to create a perfect piece. I think that, yeah, particularly in the realm of sharps and blood, there is this pressure of, oh, well, if the thing isn't pretty, if it isn't like a nice, like geometrical design or kind of like takes on some of these classical aesthetic qualities, then it's going to be judged harshly as potentially harmful. And that kind of circles back to what I kind of said, like this appeal of this kind of controlled and embodied and empowering mutilation of sense, in a sense of like, I am attracted to that chaos and to that like idea and like aesthetically like kind of implying this like idea of harm, right? Like that I find like playing in those spaces attractive and quite arousing and appealing. um I like certainly can do the stencils and like make an attractive piece, but that is definitely like not the kind of art that I'm drawn to make, and definitely prefer chaos in my sharps.
I love that. I'm learning to trust the chaos. It's an
Yeah.
interesting journey for me. And I just realized how much bias I have in my own head about the perceptions around me, especially how others perceive my kink, and I decided just to say fuck it this season and
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
fuck it. Just
Fuck
fucking
it.
playing with it. Yeah, like
Good.
my partner said to me the other day, he's like, "Oh, you're gonna have some self-care." I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go sit in the bath and play with some blood." And I was
That's right.
okay to say that. That was like, and it's a big step forward for me because, you know, you've got to accept that that's what I like to do, and
Yeah.
I'm okay, and be okay with that. And I've also got to accept that I'm saying it out loud now. It's been interesting. It's just been a beautiful and complicated and really interesting journey. But the intent behind it is beautiful. I really liked what you said about you said two things. The first one was how you need to not use it as an escape, not to deal with emotion.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Somebody was telling me the other day how they do their sharp scenes and then they go and they get thoroughly trashed afterwards. And I felt so sad for that person because I thought, you know, the half the reason we do the sharp scenes is so that we can sit in that feeling afterwards and embrace it and work through it. And it's half the reason I am the person I am today. So I just thought they were missing out on a big chunk of their life. But I'm not judging. It's just something
I
that wouldn't
understand.
work for me. And
Yeah.
I just thought it was a little bit sad because I think it's half the journey, in my own experience. No judgment on anybody else. Now I've got so sidetracked. And then the other thing you said, oh yeah, I went down a rabbit hole.
That's
I can't really say that on the
okay.
podcast because I'm gonna really fucking offend somebody who likes to get horribly wasted after doing sharps. Um, Let me just backtrack my own thoughts because your comment was really good. No, it's gone completely from my head. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, still got it's empty. Okay.
I had said I was talking about the escapism, and I was talking about enjoying kind of like aesthetically playing with the aesthetic of harm. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I had said. The pressure to create something that is like conventionally aesthetic as a way to like mitigate some of the stigma or the judgment that blood players and sharps players face from the community. That if you're not like creating beautiful art, like conventionally beautiful art, then you're not creating art, you're creating what would the
No, no, don't
none of
panic
those
now.
things. Okay.
No, no, none of this. I'll change the topic.
Yeah, it's fine.
My
Cool.
brain. Um, Mia, you've got a class coming up, and you're going to run a similar class with us. Do you want to tell me what it is? And do you want to tell me how people can get hold of you to support you for your class? I know you've got a version coming up pretty soon.
Yes. So I will be doing a free class with House Exeter on menstrual fetishes. So that was something I hadn't mentioned yet. And teaching on this topic is relatively new to me, and also playing with this is relatively new to me. But I think that menstruation is, you know, an important experience
Unavoidable.
for unavoidable part of life for many people in the population, and is very shrouded in secrecy, and like even the most like sexually open-minded kinky people, like many of them are like, no, like I don't, it's kind of like something I prefer to just not talk about or to kind of avoid. And you know, that's obviously within anyone's right to do that, but I'm always very interested in going towards the things that are like most stigmatized or most difficult to talk about and facing those head on. And so I also recently have connected with a client who we are, you know, building a master slave dynamic where he drinks my menstrual blood. And it has been a profoundly healing and positive experience for me. And it had, and anytime something is feels important to me, I like always want to learn more about it. And so it has kind of taken me down this rabbit hole of like thinking through the nuances of sex and menstruation, and also the ways that some people fetishize menstruation, and all of the cultural and psychological underpinnings that come along with that. So that's what the class will be on. It'll be on menstrual fetishes. I'm excited to do this first iteration so that I can hopefully get some feedback on the class, and then I will be, offering that to Reign of Blood. Very excited to talk through all of that with your audience. Did you want me to talk about? Oh, go ahead.
I'm really I come from a continent where women's rights aren't a thing.
Yeah.
And I spent a good part of my youth getting products up country so that women had access to them, and just the basic understanding of menstruation and woman's body and what they go through and what they need to be able to cope and how they
Yes.
cope without it, and how it impacts their lives, and what they have to go through in the various cultures in this continent. There are some incredibly heart-wrenching stories that are related to it. So I find it absolutely fascinating. And when that's actually why I reached out to you. I think that just seeing your class and seeing the topic was something that I'm so excited to see embraced. And I think it's so fucking cool that we can talk about it openly, and that we have the privilege of being able to share the stuff.
Yes.
And then we have the privilege of being able to fucking celebrate it. Because
Yes.
there's parts of my continent where you're not even allowed in the house during that time of the month. So to see the complete opposite, and to see it celebrated, and to see it spoken about, and to see us connecting as community over it, and sharing it, even if it is a subject that you're not 100% comfortable with, just the fact that you're able to have that privileged experience of being able to talk about it. It's a little bit
100%.
earth-shattering to me from Africa.
Yes.
I have to tell you, it's a little bit like, holy fucking shit, this is first world crap. And it is fantastic. And I just think it needs to be supported, and I think it needs to be celebrated. And I think that I know nothing about it, and I would definitely be in your class, and I can't wait to hear more about it, and just to be in a space where it's openly accepted and we're allowed to talk about it is fucking fantastic. So in my community, it's almost groundbreaking to be able to
honestly, no one talks
that.
about it. It's not really, I mean, it's not really talked about here either from my experience. So I'm so glad to hear that. And I would love to talk with you more. Just like, I would even love to like have a chat with you about some of the things you were talking about culturally. Because the cultural analysis and the intersectionality of how menstruation is perceived and approached across cultures is an extremely important component of the ways that people like make erotic meaning, and kind of incorporate that into their sexual erotic lives, both in celebrating and saying like, this doesn't have to be shameful, this doesn't have to be bad, but also acknowledging like the oppression and the marginalization, and all of the things and that you mentioned, and like how people make sense of that through like eroticizing the disgust that they feel like from menstruating or from being with people who menstruate. I'm also going to talk through those nuances as well.
Incredible, and just fucking incredible to see it as a topic for a class. I think that's groundbreaking, and I absolutely love it. And yeah, I just think we need to be aware of the privilege that we have, that we can have these
Yes.
experiences and talk about them.
100%. Huge
Because
privilege.
Yeah, it's just fucking amazing. And yeah, and I'm so excited to have you on board with our team. And we are so looking forward to having you for more classes, not just this one. And we wanted to say welcome. And thanks for chatting to us tonight. And thanks for sharing all of this with our amazing listeners who we just absolutely adore, guys. And thank you so much for your support and for all the love that you show our presenters and our Rain of Blood team. We're very appreciative. So thank you for coming, and yeah, I hope to chat to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for all of my amazing listeners who, if you don't know yet, then you've been living under a rock, because it's almost nightfall time. It's almost Halloween time. It's been Halloween for me for a month already, so I'm celebrating early, just because I can. When you get old, you get to make those decisions about what you're going to celebrate which day of your life, and this month has been Halloween. So I hope you are all starting to get into the spooky vibes of things. I hope you all have your Rain of Blood tickets, because our early bird sale ends on the 30th of September. So if you don't have your early bird tickets, you need to get them. We've dropped 20 presenters. If you haven't seen our lineup, go and have a look at FitLife. We have some incredible human beings. We've got 10 more presenters to drop for you, and we'll start to drop them from the 1st of October. And they are absolutely phenomenal. The classes are really cool this year, so we hope you come and support us. If you need a scholarship, please reach out. We believe education should be for everybody, and income shouldn't determine accessibility. So please reach out to the team and we'll see what we can do to help you. We have some complete BIPOC scholarships, so please reach out if you have a BIPOC member or need one yourselves. Please hit us up. We're really keen to hear from you. And then our Summer of Stabs has some amazing October classes. We started dropping them today. They should be out by the time this podcast is out. Have a look and see what's coming. There's some very exciting classes. I think there's Pin and Sin, how to make a human voodoo doll, and some other exciting things, which tick all those Halloween boxes to get you ready for nightfall. On-demand launches on the 1st of October. We have 41 on-demand classes that you can watch in the privacy of your own home and not worry about wearing pants, because they are recorded. So please hit us up, grab your tickets, carry on listening. I hope you are having a bloody good week. And from my dungeon in a very cold Cape Town today, lots of love and kitten kisses.